Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Good morning from Sridhar Mayapur. My name is Madhavananda Das. We're going to have our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we have a very special discussion. We're going over the third canto, chapter 29, teachings of Lord Kapila Deva about pure devotion service. And this is our 10th session on texts 11 to 12, which speak about the symptoms of pure devotion or Suddha Bhakti. And today we're going to speak about how the greatest example of that is the vraja-gopīs and Srimati Radharani. And we'll see how far we get with our discussion today. In this topic, we may have to have another session about the vraja-gopīs and Radharani. It's a big, big subject. So I'll go ahead and read the Sanskrit by myself. Madguna shruti matrena moi sarva guhasaye manogatira vichina yata gangam vasombudo lakshanam bhakti yogasya nirgunasya hudaritam ahoitya vyavahitaya bhakti purushottame. Hare Krishna, Lynn Marupati, good morning. Sridhar Mayapur, good evening, Lynn. Please let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm sorry, we had some computer problems a minute ago. Translation: the manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganga flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada's purport, he describes so we're going to read a little bit from the purport. I'm just looking to see which was one particular part. The basic principle is unadulterated pure devotional service, is love of Godhead. Madguna Shruti Matrina means, quote, just after hearing about the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These qualities are called nirguna. The Supreme Lord is uncontaminated by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he is attractive to the pure devotee. There is no need to practice meditation to attain such attraction. The pure devotee is already in the transcendental stage, and the affinity between him and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is natural and is compared to the Ganga water flowing towards the sea. Gora Druganya Ganagotra Goloruharam Goranga Buddha Tamagopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namani. So we call this our adventure in Srimad Bhagavatam because adventure means you make friends and you go to strange, little-known places that are very mysterious and you find out amazing things. That's Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna Tulya Bhagavata Vibhu Sarveshwar. Srimad Bhagavatam is directly Krishna. And when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, we're directly associating with him. And as this verse describes, hearing such topics, Madguna Shruti Matrena, then Mano Gatir Avichana, it continuously attracts the course of the heart and mind of Krishna, who's Sarva Guhasaye, who's the most confidential of everything. He's the heart of all hearts. So in discussing these verses about Suddha Bhakti, we've gone in a progression. We spoke about faith and what is faith, different types of faith, what is ruchi, how we develop ruchi and how that's dependent upon the guru, and how that faith should not be blind faith. We should think about it, we should contemplate how this ruchi, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, it comes from hearing and chanting with devotees. Even if we hear and chant by ourselves, it's not the same. So then we may say, well, gee, we're really out of luck because the pandemic, we're not able to associate with devotees. But there's no bar to associating with devotees. Devotees are always present. Devotees are nothing material. And we have this facility through Facebook, we have this facility through different things. We also want to associate in a physical way. That's very, very sweet. But the thoughts and ideas, the heartfelt feelings of our previous acharyas and great Vaishnavas are always possible to gain access to if we have the proper attitude. So we've been speaking about ruchi, the importance of getting kata ruchi, and who can relish that ruchi. The 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, first chapter, describes those persons who are nivriti tarshai upagiyamani, who nivriti tarshai, they've completely given up all material activities. For those persons, for them, they have kata ruchi. And so we spoke about the importance, the absolute importance in our last session about hearing about the devotees and following the devotees. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it said, tad bhavadi madhurje shrutte diryat apekshate natra shastram nayuktam cha ta lovat patti lakshanam. That when an advanced devotee hears about the behavior, the dealings, the services of the devotees in Vrindavan, and whatever particular way they serve, then we become attracted by that. So it's such an important thing to meditate upon Gurudev and the Vaishnavas. And we spoke something in that regard about the Guru Gayatri Mantra, Gurudevaya Vidmahe. We should meditate on Gurudev, try to understand him, who's Krishnanandaya. Dhimmihi, I'm thinking about him, who's Krishnanandaya, is always in ecstasy. Tanno Guru Prachodayat. And Prachodayat, he inspires me when I meditate on him like this. So this ruchi is so very, very important. We have to understand it. Therefore, we should contemplate on it. And therefore, we have this calendar, our Gaudiya Vaishnava calendar. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, one of the great contributions that he made was to give us our Gaudiya Panjika, or our Gaudiya calendar, in which he found out the appearance and disappearance days of many of the prominent associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we take advantage of those days to think about them. Because by thinking about them, we may be able to understand something of their heart and get a little bit of the ruchi that they have. So this is our prayer. We always want to become attached to Krishna. We always want to hear about him. In this regard, we'd like to speak a little something today about how there's a natural progression. When we hear in association with the devotees, it's described in the 9th chapter of this 3rd canto, text 11. Shutvam bhakti yoga paribhavita ritsuroja ase shutek shitapato nanunata pumsam yad yadyataturugaya vibhavayanti tat tad vapu pranayase sadanugrahaya. This is the nature of this Shutekshita Patta, or this path of hearing, the path of seeing through the ears. That when we begin to do this and we associate with the devotees, we hear properly from them, then an amazing thing happens. Tad vapu pranayase sad anugrahaya. Krishna shows his anugraha, or his mercy, by manifesting a particular form before those devotees. And Srila Prabhupada in his purport writes, the Shutekshita Pat, the path, the Shutekshita means to hear. The Shutekshita Pata path is to hear from bona fide devotees who are conversant with Vedic wisdom, free from mundane sentiment. By this bona fide hearing process, the neophyte devotee becomes cleansed of all material rubbish, and thus he becomes attached to one of the many transcendental forms of the Lord as described in the Vedas. He says another next paragraph in the same purport, 3911. This attachment for a particular form of the Lord is called Sarup Siddhi. The Lord sits on the lotus heart of the devotee. In the eternal form, the pure devotee desires, and thus the Lord does not part from the devotee, as confirmed in the previous verse. The Lord, however, does not disclose himself to a casual or unauthentic worshiper to be exploited. Wow. This is the nature of cheating religion. The Bhagavatam begins by stating Dharma projidikaita, which kicks out all types of cheating religion. What is cheating religion? It's Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. There's 4 types of cheating religion. And the quality that each one of them have is that it's selfishly performed. Such a person is Binadrik, as we've been hearing in this section of the Bhagavatam. They have a separate desire from the Lord. And therefore, either subtly or grossly, they want to exploit the Lord, as Srila Prabhupada points out in this purport. And Prabhupada says, the Lord, however, does not disclose himself to a casual or unauthentic worshiper to be exploited. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.25, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavrita. Rather, by Yogamaya, the Lord remains concealed to the non-devotees or casual devotees who are serving their sense gratification. The Lord is never visible to the pseudo-devotees who worship the demigods in charge of universal affairs. The conclusion is that the Lord cannot become the order supplier of a pseudo-devotee, but he's always prepared to respond to the desires of a pure, unconditional devotee who is free from all tinges of material infection. So this verse is describing Matshruti Bhakti Matrena, how important it is that we hear properly, and how important that the quality of that hearing is that it attracts the mind. Maguna Shruti Matrena. And nothing can stop it. There's no obstacles that can stop such a devotee. Rather, those obstacles increase the devotee's love. Jiva Goswami speaks about this in Priti Sandarbha in Anucheta 100. Tesham apiyat sabhava vinaiva chagun takad anya jnanat naso pritir vyabhicharati pratyutta tad eva tiras karoti. That the love of the Brijbasis, the love they have for Krishna, this is the crest jewel, priti vyabhicharati. This is the best of all the priti, of all types of love. And the nature of this love is that when oppositions come, it doesn't waver. Rather, that love surpasses all opposition. And when the obstacles arrive, the nature of this love, Jiva Goswami says, is that it actually increases. It doesn't decrease. Madguna Shruti Matrina Mayi Sarva Guhase Manogatir Avichina. Avichina means that there's nothing that can stop it. It's continuous. So Jiva Goswami says, in this way, this divine love is something like the love that the hedonists feel for material sense objects. The love that a boy feels for a girl, a hedonist means a sense enjoyer. I just love her, and the girl loves the boy. Anyway, that's another topic. But he says that love that these materialistic people feel for material sense objects is full of faults, but it's very passionate and strong. And so in the same way, this divine love is similar to that material love. Similar statements made also by Jiva Goswami in his Paramatma Sandarbha in Anucheta 93. He says, Yena hi dvesena. Dvesa means hatred. Yena hi dvesena pratipada pronmilat sangananda vachitri samitirit bhakti rasa marushtala brahma kaivalya padana rupadvena tadiya bhakti rasa maha prati yogitaya tato nyata jushti chikshataya cha Tatro chitam. That when a devotee comes in contact with someone who has hatred and they're opposing the devotees, what happens then? It increases the devotee's love for the Lord. And that love, promila sandrananda vaichitri, it has a very special quality that it has a sandrananda, it brings great transcendental bliss for the devotees at every moment. So this is the nature of bhakti, as being described by Lord Kapila Dev. Nothing can stop it. Again, in Ujjwal Nilamani, Rupa Goswami defines prema. What is prema? We speak a lot about prema, but what is prema? He says, Sarvata dvangsa rahitam satyapi dvangsakarane yad bhava bandhanam yuno sa prema parikirtita. That prema means when the relationship of love between the couple is always there, it's never destroyed, even when there's so many causes for destroying it. Rupa Goswami says that's prema. And when there's so many causes to do it, just like Srimati Radharani, she cooks every day for Krishna. But then always Jatila, her mother-in-law, is always trying to stop her. So Mother Srimati Radharani, someday she may say, anyway, I really wanted to cook for Krishna, but my mother-in-law wouldn't let me go. There's too many obstacles, so I can't do it today. I'm sorry. She sends a little note to Krishna, sorry, I can't cook for you today. We've never heard of such a pastime like that. Many times Jatila tries to stop Radharani from cooking, but always Radharani's intense desire, avichinam, her continuous desire to serve Krishna can't be stopped, just like the Ganga going to the ocean. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes in his Prema Samput, he defines prema there. Loka dvayat svajanata, loka dvayat svajanata parato svatova, prana priyadapi sumeru samayadishu, kleshastat apyati bali sahasa vichitya, premaiva tan hariribhan, eva pushtam eti. He says there that there may be so many sufferings, insurmountable sufferings in this world, from relatives, from the greatest cause of suffering is your wife or your husband, not in my case, but our family members. As there's a saying in America, God help me, God save me from my friends. Our friends cause us so much trouble. We have some idea, we'll have a community and it's going to be so nice and we'll all love each other and we'll all stay together and take prasadam and everything will just be so wonderful. And then we find out that people do politics and people have different desires and different ideas about what that community is going to be. And there's so much suffering. But all those things, when they're put up against prema, prema conquers all of them and prema becomes even stronger. And he gives an example. He says, just like Ati Bali Sahasi, Ati Bali becomes even more strong. Premaiva tan Hari, here Hari, it means a lion. Even Eva Pushtameti, just like an elephant, when it's fighting against a lion, it gives the lion more courage. Yes, now I have a big opponent, so I have to fight even harder. So what looks like suffering in this world, and things which we may take as an excuse, well, I just really can't do my bhakti today. There's so many oppositions, there's so many problems. I have a headache, I don't feel good today, I'm not going to get up in the morning. I can't chant my japa, I can't do my service. Whatever obstacles are there for a pure devotee, those obstacles and even suffering, it turns to happiness. Rupa Goswami, in his Ujjwal Nilamani, chapter 14, defines rag, the state of love. There's different stages of love: sneha, man, pranaya, rag, anurag, bhav, ruda mahabhav, adi ruda mahabhav, modanaka, madanaka mahabhav. There's different stages our Guru Maharaj used to speak about. So he defines rag in the following way: Dukam apyadikam chitte, Sukha Vinaiva Rajate. Yatastu Pranaya Karshat Saraga Iti Kirtite. That when the previous stage, pranaya means when the lover and the beloved become one in the heart. It's a stage of love, reaches a very high state. And whatever suffering, dukkam, adyadikam, chitta, is there in the heart, that's called raga. And Jiva Goswami, he comments on this, that when Krishna is attained, suffering turns to happiness. And when Krishna leaves, then happiness turns to suffering. This is raga. And this is a real definition of avicina, how bhakti is continuous and it can't be stopped. Just like someone's going to decide, well, I'm going to stop the Ganga. I'm going to go stand in front of it. Today you're not allowed to go to the ocean. The Ganga is not going to listen to you. You know, just like we were speaking a few weeks ago about the Yajna Brahmins, and how they were trying to stop their wives from going to Krishna. And these are big guys, and they're all these men, and they're standing in front of these little Vedic Indian wives. But the girls, those ladies, they say, "Get out of my way, or you're going to get run over right now," because they have this intense desire. Mano gatira vichina. This is the nature of pure bhakti. Nothing can stop it. So we've been speaking something about that the last few days, but the highest example of this is the vraja-gopīs. It's described by Srinath Chakravarti Thakur in his Chaitanya Mata Manjusa, in his first verse, his Mangala verse, Radha Bhagavan, Brajesa Tanayasta Dhama Vrindavana. He speaks about what is the inner mood of Mahaprabhu. And he says, Radha Bhagavan, Brajesa Tanayasta Dhama Vrindavana, Ramya Katcharupasana Bhajavadu Vargena Vakopita. That of all the types of worship, the worship of Krishna is the best, Vrindavan Dham is the best, and the best of the devotees are the gopis of Vrindavan. So in our next two sessions, we're not going to finish today, I can see that now, we would like to speak something to you about the one pointed focus of the vraja-gopīs of Vrindavan. We're breaking the Kadasi right now. Thank you. The one pointed focus of these gopis of Vrindavan, because this is such an important thing. We need to hear about them. If we don't hear about them, there's no example, then how will we develop ruchi if we don't hear about the ecstasy of the Lord's devotees? So Jiva Goswami was just saying how in union, suffering turns to happiness, and in separation, happiness turns to suffering. And Rupa Goswami gives a very wonderful example of this in the next verse. Tivarka juti dipiti asilatadara karasubir martando pala mandali strata staputite pyadris tatetas tuzi pasyanti pasu pendanandanam asat indivira astritve Tope nyasta padambu jeva muditasna spandate radhika. So he gives an example of this. How when someone sees Krishna, is in contact with Krishna, then suffering turns to happiness. How Srimati Radharani one day was standing on a mountain, perhaps at Barshana, Jiva Goswami doesn't exactly mention, and she was standing. And the gopis saw her and they were very shocked because it was in the middle of the day. And in the middle of the day in Vrindavan, to this day, it's very extremely hot. And she was standing in the hot, hot sun without moving. And not only was she standing on the hot sun, she was standing on hot stones. Those stones are so hot, you put your feet on, you'll get blisters immediately. And Srimati Radharani was just standing there. And not only were they very hot, and it was noontime, intense rays of the sun were there, but those stones were also very sharp. They would cut you. And Srimati Radharani was just standing there. Radharani was stunned in ecstasy because she was seeing Krishna in the distance. And she was completely oblivious to the hot stones, to the sharpness, to the heat of this mid-summer day. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when he comments on this verse, he says that When Lalita saw Radharani in the distance, she was relishing her mood with her friends. And this is the nature of ruchi. Ruchi has to be done in connection with someone who has it. And so we've been speaking about that in our last session, how important it is to meditate on the devotees. And we see that in Vrindavan, even the gopis, they're also meditating on Radharani. And in this way, they're relishing what she's relishing. And Vishwanath, in his commentary on this verse of Ujjayi Little Money, he says that Radharani is standing on the side of that mountain that has sharp, razor-sharp stones, which is so hot with the rays of the noonday sun. And the hottest month of the year, those stones are like razor blades. And Radharani is just standing there. And he says that although there's suffering caused by touching those hot, sharp, hard rocks, Radharani is getting ecstasy by seeing Krishna. And so Vishwanath goes on to say that when someone's sleeping, they don't experience the pain of mosquitoes biting. Well, sometimes we do in Jagannath Puri, but anyway, we don't want to argue Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Many times you don't feel it, you just wake up. But in the morning, you see some blood, he says, coming out of the bites. So in a similar way, Radharani doesn't experience any pain on her tender feet now, but later on, you may think, oh, she'll feel pain later. But Vishwanath says, no, that's not so. Because by seeing Krishna, Radharani is completely submerged in bliss. And her body, from head to toe, becomes cool like a million moons. It's not possible to burn her. He said, just as the moon can never be heated by the rays of the sun, and a piece of cotton can't be defeated by a sharp rock, her feet, which are softer than cotton, can't be defeated by the rocks. There's a similar description by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Chamatkar Chandrika, which a little similar to our description today, how on one occasion, Srimati Radharani was being held back by Jatila to go to cook for Krishna. She wasn't able to go, and Radharani was suffering so much. There was a blazing fire in her body, and concerned that even she might, Hare Krishna, she might die from this intense fever. The gopis, they made a special bed with lotus flowers that are said to be very, very cooling, petals from lotus flowers. And they smeared sandalwood paste and camphor on that, which are all very, very cooling. And they laid Radharani down in that feverish condition of separation. And as soon as they laid her down, immediately all those lotus petals dried up, in fact, they burned to fire. And all the sandalwood paste and camphor just dried up immediately. So Radharani, she found that bed of sandalwood paste and camphor to be like fire. But then a few minutes later, one of the gopis came and said, Krishna's very unhappy and he won't eat. And I've come, can you just make something for Krishna? And immediately without suddenly Radharani, who was previously in a feverish condition, almost unconscious, she jumps up and she runs to the hot stove and she starts putting firewood in it. And that hot stove, she feels it to be very, very cool in her service for Krishna. So this is Mano Gatir Avichina. There's nothing that can stop the mind, nothing that can stop the service of such a devotee. And even what appears like mundane obstacles, when someone hates a devotee, when someone puts obstacles in their way. Jiva Goswami in Priti Sandarbha, we were reading it, and also in Paramatma Sandarbha, he says that those obstacles, they just increase the love of the devotees. They don't decrease it. And this is the nature of love. This is the definition of love. Even when it has every reason to stop and be destroyed, and it keeps going, that's prema. And the nature of this love is that when there's suffering, that suffering becomes happiness in connection with Krishna, meeting Krishna. But when Krishna leaves, and that same happiness that they may have turns into suffering. So I'm going to stop there. We've gone a little later than I wanted to go. And I want to ask the devotees if there's any reflections, what you're walking away with today. There's a few comments here I'm going to go ahead and read first. dear friend Madhupati Prabhu, Mahendra Prabhu, Hare Krishna, nice to see you. Madhupati Prabhu was saying it may help us to stop being a pseudo-devotee and stop exploiting Krishna if we take nothing for granted and train our mind to be grateful for everything, even a breathful of air or a single heartbeat, keeping up alive until the next one. I wish I could be like that, but I think you are, my friend. Such a beautiful thing. What a nice reflection. Thank you. This is a way to stop from being fake devotees and stop exploiting Krishna if we train ourselves to be grateful. That gratitude is so very, very important. And how do we practice that gratitude? We practice it in association with Vaishnavas and with Gurudev, by appreciating bhakti in their association, by appreciating the kirtan, the prasadam, the deity dressing, the Krishna katha. And Lynn's commented, I feel a bit far from this kind of love. But I think I might begin to see the obstacles I encounter as invitations to feel love even deeper. Then the inspiration to overcome these obstacles to my practice will come naturally rather than feeling like I'm fighting against those obstacles just to do my practice. Yes, the gopis are the greatest example, but they're not the only example of this kind of thing. Queen Kunti Devi, she describes in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, Vipadasham tutasya svat-tat-tu-tacha-digadguru, bhavato darshanam yat sharapurna bhagadarshan. May these obstacles come again and again, because when these obstacles come, then I have to hold my hands up and say, help, help, Krishna. I become more inspired by that. So it's a good thing. Those obstacles in that way are my friends, and perhaps they're sent by Krishna to wake me up and to help me to go deeper and deeper into my practice. There's another thought I had. Natalia has commented. In union with Krishna, suffering turns into happiness. In separation, happiness turns into suffering. That is a perfect answer to a question why Krishna does not decrease obstacles for great creatures. It seems to some people that Krishna should do that for the sake of disseminating Krishna consciousness. Very nice, very deep comment. It's so nice to be with the devotees and hear these things. When we hear about these kind of obstacles, it gives us inspiration. I remember those that are common, that once there's a description in Catholicism of the saint, one of our heroes, Saint Francis of Assisi, and how he was journeying with one of his followers to a far distant town, and it was pouring down rain. They were very, very hungry. They were very tired. They were soaking wet. It was very, very cold. And they didn't arrive to the monastery of their friends until late in the evening. And they beat on the door. And one of the monks came to the door, and he didn't recognize him. And he said, go away. You're not wanted here. Get out of here. And Francis, then he slammed the door in their face. And Francis turned to the devotee he was with and said, this is very good. The devotee said, how is this very good? We're going to die. We're so cold. We're soaking wet. It's just miserable and everything. And Francis says, no. What's bad is when people praise me and say that I'm a great devotee. But what's very good is when they don't let me inside, and they chastise me, and they speak harsh words, and they come out and they beat us with sticks. And then when we're laying there in the mud after being beaten and dishonored in that way for our Lord, that suffering becomes our greatest happiness. That's a statement by Saint Francis of Assisi. Not so easy to do, easy to say, but when someone tells us you have to cook today, oh my God, it's terrible. It's like the worst thing in the world, and we have to go out and book distribution. I really don't want to do that. Huh? But when you think about these devotees who suffered so much, and their suffering is ecstasy, their happiness, because they're seeing Krishna. So why don't we experience that? Because we're doing something in a mechanical way. Omkar Prabhu has commented, do we lose taste in material life first, then we develop kata ruchi, or does it both go at one time? I mean, as kata ruchi increases, materialistic desires grow. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that as we progress, there's like two scales. On one side is our ruchi, and on the other side is our material attachments. And as our ruchi increases, as the scale goes down there, and the other scale becomes lighter. Just as Krishna says in the Gita, pram visvanivartate, that by experiencing a higher taste, and this lower taste are given up. So we're going to stop there now, and I want to ask the devotees who are here in the room if they can share with us today what you're walking away with, because this is Bhagavatam, it's something active and exchange. So, Anapani Radha, we want to start.
Thank you so much for this topic. I think it's really important to hear about this. And as Lynn pointed out, that it's seems like really far away from me, for example, but it's really important to hear about examples of the gopis and other great devotees. And it reminded me how Mahaprabhu was hearing about Dhruva and Prahlad Maharaj. So he wanted to hear about these obstacles. Remind him like Radharani. Yeah. And also it reminds me the story with Krishna, Balaram and Sandipani Muni, how they were struggling going to the forest under the tree and this thunderbolts and rain and cold, and how Sandipani Muni, he was really pleased by their but that they try to overcome these obstacles just to please him. And I just was thinking that I would like to have this mood, just even some obstacles coming, just understand that this is the way, this is messages for me and helpers for me to become closer to the spiritual master. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. We have a saying in America, a fair weather friend. Means a friend who's our friend when everything is good. But when everybody likes you, when you're the most important person in school, you're the most beautiful girl, you're the most popular person, you're the strongest boy, then everybody wants to be your friend. But then you get in an auto accident and you lose your beauty, you lose your strength or something, then they don't care about you anymore. It's a fair weather friend. We don't want to be fair weather friends with the Vaishnavas or with our Gurudev. Shampriya, do you have something you're walking away with today? Share with us. Yeah. Can you take this?
Thank you, Madhavananda Prabhu. That was a very interesting class. Thank you for those different things about how the obstacles actually should increase our determination and the flow of love towards Krishna. And it's very interesting to think about those points. Thank you.
Thank you. And Krishna Kun, what are you walking away with today? Do you have some comment for us? Can we show everybody's face at the end?
Well, it's such an elevated topic that I'm kind of dumbfounded. But it immediately reminded me of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajans. In several places, he says this, that the obstacles that are on my path of devotional service become the source of my happiness. And this has always been like a meditation for me, but now there are all these other examples directly from Srimati Radharani's lotus feet, literally. And that's very encouraging. One thing that caught my attention is that from proper hearing, this, what is it? Shuteb Shitapata. From proper hearing, the mind will become attracted. So I'm just thinking,
Krishna manifests a particular form.
Yeah, I guess that comes a little later. But I was just thinking about this, that also from proper hearing about this kind of love, of these kind of devotees, then the mind will maybe one day become so attracted that we can just step over all the obstacles, and it can also become happiness for us.
Hare Krishna. Anupani, now we want to go around the room here just for one moment. We're going to show everybody Giriraj Govardhan. and we're going to get to see the faces of some of the devotees here. And we want to ask Anupani Radha to go around and take it for everybody. First, we have Anupani Radha. That is Anupani Radha. You can also see her picture in the post office and the wanted posters, and the police are looking for her. And there's Shampriya, hello! And Giriraj Govardhan. Giriraj Maharaj Ki.
Okay.
So thank you very much, dear devotees. In our next session, we have something really special. We're going to speak something about the connection between Jagannath Puri and Vrindavan, Govardhan. And I think, isn't it nice to see everybody's faces? Lynn says, it's so nice to see the faces of our distant friends. And we're going to speak something more about the gopis and the internal mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that'll be on Wednesday. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki